Okay, Richard, what are we playing this week then?
So this week I thought we'd attempt to complete the Need for Speed on the 3DO. So this is a 3DO original, and it was sort of the closest to a killer app that the 3DO had during its lifespan. It went on to much bigger things, obviously. It spawned many sequels across different platforms. Have you got any experience with this version at all?
Well, I have played said sequels on the PlayStation and other platforms, but I didn't even realise this was a 3DO game. I thought it originally came out on the PlayStation.
I think most people don't really know that this is sort of like a 3DO original, actually. You know, that's something that surprises a lot of people. Do you want to get to it then?
Yeah, let's go for it. Oh, the perfect FMVs on the 3DO.
Obviously, this is a year before the PlayStation and Saturn even came out. 6 months before it came out in Japan, anyway, the PlayStation, and I think probably an entire year before it came out in America. Before
It's been
the PlayStation
mind-blowing to see.
You know, so this is really the era of the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo still.
And then you see that.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow.
Free ticket in the rocket of your dreams. A one-way ticket to the stars and a ride you won't soon forget. Fasten your seatbelts.
This is terrible acting.
This is the guy that we're racing against as well. So it's sort of 1 versus 1 racing across civilian traffic, really. So you got these options here. This is the tracks. There's only 3 tracks in the 3DO version. They created more tracks for the PlayStation and Saturn versions, but they actually came out over a year and a half after this, so they were well later. You know, it goes through all the details and the different cars and such.
All-wheel drive helps put the VT's 492 brake horsepower to the ground.
So lots and lots of detail here, really, isn't there? You know. Right, so the C button changes the view. I usually end up using this view. It's just the one I prefer. The A button's go, and the B button is the brake. So get ready to go for it.
Nice wheel spin.
And like I said before, the only aim is just to beat that guy. And obviously you've got to avoid the civilian traffic whilst you do it. Oh yeah, the other thing is, if you want to turn tighter, then push diagonal backwards.
Okay. Hasn't crashed yet.
Actually, the magazines of the time really sort of they went really overboard on the crashes in this game. They were going on about how they were like the most amazing crashes that they've ever seen in a racing game, kind of thing.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get to see some.
Hopefully not. Oh, you hear that noise as well? That's the police. So they sort of come after you like they do in Road Rash. This is the checkpoint here. They're quite long courses, but there's quite a lot of differences in them as well. The tracks keep changing as you go through them.
Right.
But I think there's like a checkpoint or 2 per course. Well, there's only 3.
Man and steel. Coming 1. Yeah, wax my ass. Congratulations.
You can see how they sort of phased out these FMVs by the PlayStation era, can't you?
It's like the slowest start of a race I've ever seen.
And actually, they massively sped this game up for the PlayStation and Saturn versions, which some people complained about at the time because this is sort of, they want it to be more realistic and less arcade feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously the PlayStation and Saturn versions just feel very, very arcadey. Electronic Arts were like quite a big supporter of the 3DO as well, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but 3DO, the 3DO company, was actually created by a guy called Trip Hawkins.
Yeah.
And he was the founder of Electronic Arts as well. So there's sort of links between the 2 companies, you know. And as such, the 3DO got all the sort of the latest sports games and things. As well as this and Road Rash, its own Road Rash game, which was ported to the PS1 and Saturn later on as well.
Yeah.
And the Road Rash game's actually fantastic as well. Road Rash was always a classic, really.
I love Road Rash. Great game.
Oh, it's it. Number 1. Quite a nice little sort of end sequence, isn't it?
Yeah. Pretty good. Which goes up and which goes down.
Do you want to change the view?
Yeah. Oh, that's better.
So
That's
hold
reverse.
the
Oh shit.
yeah, that's it. A button.
I remember, like I said, if you're pushing diagonal downwards, then you do more,
Yeah,
more
tight
of a
turns.
tight turn, basically.
Shut up, a cop already. Sort off, Rosa.
Just stay in your lane, and you know. Although
I'll do no
Oh.
such thing. I will go
Nice
through
one.
everywhere.
There's a lot of nasty little. Oh,
I meant to do that.
that's it. Just keep going.
Sod off, Rosa. Sod off, Rosa. Oh, I haven't passed him, so he won't start catching me. See that? I meant to spin that. Hey!
He's waxing your ass, Chris.
There ain't no possibility of that. I'm not catching him.
You're slowly catching up.
Oh, he crashed. He crashed. Just that one there. Conserving speed. Yeah, boy.
Halfway point.
Few
Just a few
spins.
hiccups at the beginning.
Yeah. Darting up the inside.
Policeman here. Are you going to slam into?
I just needed to slow down a bit. I needed a buffer.
Oh,
What are you awing about? Yeah,
Got it.
no worries.
Oh man, you gotta love the suspense. This race feels close, my friend.
Number one.
he was much more excited playing against you than he was me, wasn't he?
You weren't very exciting.
we probably should be doing it on this view for a
No,
while.
it's awful.
Shall I try and do it on this view
No.
for a little while? Let's see how it goes. It's just so sort of constrictive, isn't it?
Yeah. And distracting too.
I don't think I'll keep it on here for that long, but just to show people at home. Oh, go, man!
That didn't last long!
The frame rate's not bad actually.
Frame rate's
on this
good.
watch, is it? I'd just say it just feels a little bit slow, but to be honest, I've always been more of a fan of arcade racing games than more realistic ones anyway, so
Yeah.
that might just be my personal preference, you know.
Well, mine are futuristic racing games that are
Yeah.
my favourites. Stuff like F-Zero, Wipeout, Roll Cage.
Yeah.
This doesn't have it's got its charms, definitely.
Yeah.
50 miles an hour, please, Rich. What it said there. You're 102. You've got no respect for the law.
You just back-ended a police officer.
Could you rephrase that, please? It's called rear-ending.
That's the word.
You just bareback to... What the fucking what?
That's the one.
Fucking rear-ending.
Hey, look at this bridge here, you know, it's quite impressive, isn't
That
it?
is impressive. Oh! Oh, you're alright. Go. You're in neutral, you dickhead. Oh, you
No.
smashed it.
Ah,
Crashed.
well, you got to see one crash during our play. That's why I did that on purpose. you
Yeah,
see.
yeah, purpose, yeah.
Unfortunately,
That's what it
I wished I'd done it on purpose a bit earlier in the
was,
race.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Done it on
And I
purpose.
had more time to actually catch up.
Faster. Pedal to the floor. Is that the end? Oh, it's going to be close.
Come on!
Oh, he's going to... Oh, no. Oh, so close. Oh, if you hadn't had that last crash. What?
Why is this? Maybe it times it from both.
Maybe.
Maybe because I did the first checkpoint, it times it up. So yeah, I had actually done it because the game basically checks your average time across the course. So because I went past the first checkpoint way faster than him, it sort of averaged it over as me being the winner.
Okay, Rich, what do you think of the game?
Well, I think this is quite an impressive game, actually. You know, quite advanced for the year it came out because this is 1994. So we're still maybe 6 months off of the Japanese release of the PlayStation, and an entire year off from the US and the British releases of the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn. So really, this guy is going up against the Super Nintendo and the Mega Drive primarily, and it just sort of blows a lot of those graphics away, you know, from those systems. The primary competitor to the 3DO during its time was really the Atari Jaguar, but the Atari Jaguar had nothing anywhere near this, really. Maybe it's going up against the 32X Virtua Racing, but that game has very little texture on it. It's mostly just sort of flat shaded polygons, but this has these really long courses, very detailed courses. They go through a lot of different transitions, don't they? You know, you've got bridges, you've got tunnels going through them, and you've got different environments as well for each course. So I think that there's quite a lot of work put into a lot of these courses, really. You've got to remember that these companies don't have the assets at the time. You know, at this point in time, they haven't built up a load of 3D assets, so they're making everything sort of from the ground up. You know, obviously as games progress, as the era progressed, they could just take the assets they'd already made and then they would build on them and then make longer games with more courses and such. But this time they're just sort of starting from scratch. And I don't know if you remember Ridge Racer 1 very well, but the first Ridge Racer, what it actually does is it has the first course, and the second course is built off of the first course. So there'll be like a blockade on one race. You pick race 2 and it'll go down a different route and then join onto the same part of the course. So it's sort of a way that, in a way, they've reused the sort of skeleton of one course and then added little sections onto it.
So they don't have to build a whole entire new course.
Yeah, whereas this actually does have 3 full courses and they're quite long courses. So this is very advanced in comparison to a lot of its competition, and it was quite heralded when it came out, like I said at the beginning and during the intro, is that this was sort of half seen as a killer app at the time, you know, the magazines. So how did you feel about the game then?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed the game. The graphically, it's intense. It's so good for its year. 1994, that's incredible. They could have saved a lot of time, effort and money if they'd just scrapped that fucking idiot. I mean, I know he's meant to be there. He's meant to be the comic relief, but I mean...
You're supposed to not like him, though, aren't you?
He grated on me,
He's the rival.
He's not the villain of the piece as much as he's just the annoyance of the piece. But no, apart from that, I really enjoyed the game.
Yeah.
Okay, Rich, so what are you going to score it then?
So I've thought about this quite a bit, and the way that I feel about it is that this is just so impressive this time, that it's just so far out ahead that I'm going to have to give this the full 5 out of 5 score. Because quite frankly, if I wasn't to give this a 5, then I'm not sure what I would be rating any of the other racing games from that era, you know, that I actually quite like, because this is just well ahead of most of this stuff. This is well ahead of Virtua Racing on the 32X, let alone the Sega Mega Drive version of Virtua Racing, which came out around the same time as this and was heralded at the time as well. So I will say it's a 5 out of 5 for 1994, but this is a game that dated quite quickly, you know. Possibly even by the end of 1995, this had been sort of overtaken by other games that were around. But even saying that, I remember in Edge magazine, circa 2000, they actually did a top 100 games ever made, and they specifically named this as being one of the best games ever made, and that was at the end of the era. It was the 3DO version they were talking about as well. So obviously some people disagree with me and felt that it still held up, you know, all those years later. But personally, I think for 1994 this is phenomenal. But obviously as time goes on and all this competition comes out on superior systems, they all build and work on their games and add more courses and improve the graphics and the handling and all such and such. This sort of gets relegated as the time goes on.
So, question, are you basing that purely on the graphical content?
No, it's more realistic because it's in 3D with polygonal 3D. It's the perspective is correct. It's not like a Super Nintendo Mode 7 game where it's effectively a flat ground that's just rotating, is it? This is a proper undulating, moving 3D environment that you're racing in, you know, with multiple different camera views and such. There was nothing like this in regards to sort of realistic racing through civilian traffic. There was nothing available like this. I think they put quite a lot of work in this on the sound of the engines and the handling. From what I've heard, they did actually bring on a lot of experts to try and sort of hone it a little bit. And obviously, it's compared to the games we see today, that it's nothing, you know, nowhere near as accurate. But for the time of release, that's a lot more work than was commonly done. So, what are you going to score it then? Probably not as much as me.
Well, no, actually, after what you've just said and explaining why you've scored it that way, I'm going to give it the full 5 as well. The way you sold it with it is a fully 3D rendered polygonal environment. That is incredible for the era.
Yeah, and fully textured.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd see something like this, but it would just be basic colours, no textures on anything. Stunt Race FX, you know, on the Super Nintendo and such.
Yeah, so no, purely because of that, because of the way you explained it, it is a 5 out of 5 game, definitely. Okay, guys, that's the Need for Speed this week. Very enjoyable game.
Yeah, it's good. It is. I do feel it's a little bit dated, but I think for the time, phenomenal game, really. You know,
yeah, it really broke the barriers of 1994. It really did. So, guys, if you liked it, give us a comment. Tell us what you think of the game. Give us a like. It always helps. And subscribe to the channel because we're always releasing great new content like this. And we will see you next week with another game. Take care, guys.
See ya. So unfortunately, after finishing the video, we realised the game had defaulted to easy. So I don't feel comfortable saying we completed the game when we only did it on easy. So I'm just going to rush through the game on fast speed, on intermediate mode, just so that it's in the video. I'll probably slow it down at certain segments because there's some stuff in intermediate that you don't get to see in easy. Because in intermediate, you actually have 3 segments to each race, not 2. And you might have noticed actually in the video that I'm sort of surprised that the race is already over during the first race because I can sort of vaguely remember that it's supposed to go on for longer than that. But it's been such a long time since I played the game that I'd just forgotten, unfortunately.
It's best to actually, I found, start the engine going before you change gear. And then try and block him off.
Pretty cool section here, sort of a forest. Obviously you don't get to see this in beginner. Not doing too well. I think it looks pretty nice. A change of pace. A lot of the best looking sections are in the third segments actually, I think. This whole section here looks quite nice.
Nerve to push the envelope.
1 to go. Another new sort of environment here. We've got a sort of snowy area in Alpine. Here if I can block him again. Yes! Right, that's that done on intermediate then. It only took me a couple of hours, I think.